We are reacting to Mad Season Show's Classic Plus survey video where he talks about all the points on the survey, about his opinions as a classic guy. He's a very, very big, die-hard classic player. So I want to see what he thinks is the ideal, good Classic Plus. Let's just dive right into it. I love his intros, I'm not gonna lie.
Hey guys, what's up? Mad Season here, back with another video for you. Whoa, vanilla video. Yeah, I know it's been forever, but recently Blizzard sent out one of those surveys to players about a hypothetical version of World of Warcraft Classic, and a lot of the questions have a lot of the highly requested features of Classic Plus, so that's gotten everything in this buzz again, and I just thought that we would go through it here together and theorize and share some thoughts on it all. So, Classic Plus, if you didn't know, is this undefined version of vanilla World of Warcraft.
Now, considering that I think this is the very first Classic Plus video he's doing, because he's mainly made classic videos on, you know, why TBC is this, why Wrath is this, why this expansion is this. He does these high quality essay videos where he dives down into the nitty gritty of the surveys, you know, why they of the game and why it's good, bad, all that stuff. So seeing his opinion on what Classic Plus should be and how they should do it is going to be interesting, because my whole channel is like a Classic Plus channel and all that stuff. So I'm genuinely curious. Let's just see what the first opinion he has about it. And also, Chella, welcome to the cult. I appreciate you. Thank you.
That is the game in its 1.12 state, with the Eastern Kingdoms and Kalimdor, with content added in the style of the so-called spirit of vanilla that everybody says. All of it is very vague. No one can really agree on it, but some common things would be stuff like new zones, usually zones that were intended to be included in the original game by the original developers, but they were abandoned for one reason or another. So this would be things like Mount Hyjal. It could also be new things like Battlegrounds. For many, the Ishara Crater may come to mind, which was that abandoned MOBA battleground, similar in a lot of ways to...
Actually, I gotta enter this call. 1 second, chat. Sorry. Oh, chat, goddammit. That was a call with my neighbor. He's a great guy, so I had to kind of take the call. But okay. Let's get back to this reaction. Let's get back in this reaction.
League of Legends. And there could also be stuff like new spells and abilities for all of the classes, or items and quest lines, such as the abandoned Ashbringer quest line. There could be new professions, such as Survivalist, and of course the usual stuff like dungeons and raids, and all done once again under this spirit of vanilla. So there's been kind of a lot of apathy and...
So, before he dives into it, the thing with what people consider Classic Plus, it's so divisive that there's a joke going around the community right now. You ask 100 people what Classic Plus is, you get 100 different answers. Because absolutely nobody, and I'm saying this, nobody agrees on what Classic Plus is. Even something as simple as class balancing of like giving Paladins Taunt is controversial. You can't give Paladins Taunt, that's not Classic. But then what's the point of that plus? I'm not saying go full retail, but how is giving Paladins Taunt a net negative? There are so many little things that, for example, new dungeons. People aren't all for that. New raids, not everybody's down for that. New zones, again, not everybody's down for that. Every single little facet of what makes Classic Plus is absolutely debatable.
Pessimism surrounding it because people, you know, understandably so, have kind of lost faith in Blizzard. And not only that, it's just been a highly requested thing for quite a while, and they've just been kind of teasing it with their seasonal modes such as Mastery, and Closer was their most recent, which was Season of Discovery. In fact, I'm sure a lot of the comments will kind of reflect this. I'm sure there's going to be a lot of hopium thrown around, which I totally get, but I still thought it would make for a fun video. This video is brought to you by a sponsor. This one was really interesting to me because it's very MMO-like. It's a series called Viridian Gate Online. The premise is...
So I'm gonna let the trailer, I'm gonna let this part play. I'm gonna let him discuss his sponsorship right there.
Viridian Gate Online.
But I will say that when it does come to Classic Plus overall as an experience, as a moment, as a game,
yeah, sound familiar?
Over half the player base, half the community, people are going to be disappointed people are going to be upset. There's going to be a lot of like anger and frustration on the game in general, no matter what they do. If you love Classic, you may actually hate Classic Plus. If you hate retail, you may love Classic Plus. Every single person, every single element, every single situation at hand is literally this weird situation. Because Classic Plus is going to divide the community down to the smallest T. Every single person, every single like Classic player is going to be upset no matter what. But now that he's done with his ad read, let's go
into it here. So people were asked what they thought of these features being added to this hypothetical version of Classic. The first being playable shamans on the aligned side. And this is kind of funny because it's a bit lopsided, isn't it? What, Horde just don't get paladins? Personally, I'm okay with that. Actually, it's in the list. It's just at the very bottom for some reason. But this does get into something that will be kind of a theme with everything on this list. And this is just my opinion, but now, especially since Blizzard seems to be going down the entire list of expansions in the 2019 line of Classic. Next is Mists of Pandaria in July, actually. And they'll probably do Draenor just to get to Legion. And then, who knows, maybe...
I actually have a theory here that I don't think we're getting Ward or Legion. I think Mists of Pandaria Classic is the end, and after Mists of Pandaria Classic, you merge into Retail WoW. And I don't have some valid, solid points here. I had two theories. One is at the end of Legion, you merge into the last patch of the Last Titan, and then Legion and the Last Titan go into 14.0, the effective WoW 2.0 launch, because Chris Benson talked about how after the World Tour Saga, they want to do something big, reinvent the wheel, give or take. So WoW 2.0 would be after the Last Titan, so Legion and the Last Titan would merge, and then you go into the new experience. Or at the end of MOP, they merge into Midnight WoW, and then you just play Retail there. So by virtue of that, I do think that we are entering this weird era where MOP may be the last of the Classic cycle, the Classic OG if you want to call it that, or Classic continuation. And then we have the Classic trilogy that keeps happening. You know, you have Classic, TBC, Wrath on repeat on the side there. And then all the effort would go into effectively the Classic Plus once they've got that cycle continuing. Because I don't see Warlord or the World of Draenor bringing in a lot of money or income towards Classic. I see it being like one of those downtimes where I see Legion being pretty like well played, but are we then going to BFA Classic, Shadowlands Classic, Dragonflight Classic, and then are we going to do the War Within Classic and all of that? It just doesn't seem like the right direction. But that's just a theory at the end of the day.
By the time they get to BFA, people will have forgotten.
Also, hey, Cape as well with the cult. I appreciate you.
They'll do BFA Classic where you're encouraged to play not by the reward of playing, but instead by the punishment of not playing. But I digress. My point, though, is that with everybody experiencing these re-releases, I think people in general have a much clearer idea of the identity of each of these expansions. Like, BC brought Shamans to the Alliance and Paladins to the Horde, as well as arenas, right? Wrath had achievements, Mists had pet battles, Draenor had depression, and Cataclysm had new zones. You know what I mean? And it really just depends on their goal, but right off the bat here, if their goal is to create a Classic Plus in the so-called spirit of vanilla, I think they would be doing themselves a disservice if they were to add too many of these features that are part of the identity of other expansions, such as Paladins and Shamans being shared, and achievements, and arena, which we'll see. I think maybe one or two of them isn't a big deal, but if you start going crazy with it, I think you will lose this identity to vanilla, and it'll just end up being...
And my counterpoint to that is, Vanilla's identity is already dead. Nobody plays Classic like Vanilla. Nobody's playing the game how it's meant to be played. Everybody's treating Classic like a retail experience, min-maxed high heaven, speeding through everything, world buff meta. People cleared Blackwing Lair in 11 minutes. 11 minutes to clear a Blackwing lair. They did rank 14 grind without the decay. Suddenly everybody's rank 14. The whole idea of Vanilla's spirit and Vanilla's identity is dead. So I don't actually agree with that standpoint. I do agree with him that they need to keep true to Vanilla's identity and Vanilla's spirit. But where is that spirit? Where is that identity? Because any form of min-maxing possible, people have done. Not everybody. Not everybody's going out of their way to min-max down to the most minutiae detail. But a lot of people do. So is Horde, Paladin, Alliance, Shaman terrible? Is it really against the spirit of Classic? I don't think so. I think it's actually fine and fits in with the spirit of Classic just fine. It's not against that spirit of Classic at this point in time. I don't think it is at all.
This weird collage of many different areas of the game, which isn't even necessarily to say that's a bad thing, but what it wouldn't be is vanilla, which I think is still the most popular version of the game. I mean, there's a reason why they make all of these seasons based off of vanilla World of Warcraft. They could have made SOD based off of Burning Crusade, or Wrath, Cataclysm, whatever, but they didn't. Why? Because vanilla is the most popular, as great as expansions BC and Wrath are, and I think
they did it on vanilla because it was alpha beta for Classic Plus. I don't think there was. I think it was an experiment to prove to the shareholders. I think the shareholders need to see that Classic Plus was worth investing in, so they invested in. They showed them Season Discovery, they showed them numbers, which got them the green light and the budget to make Classic Plus, which is I think what this is. I do think that Classic Plus needs to adhere to the spirit of 2004, but modernize the game in a way that we don't get Classic 2019. Because Classic, Season of Mastery, Season Discovery, Anniversary is not at all what the designers and the game creators envisioned with where we are today. So that's why I don't think a lot of this is against the spirit of Classic or the spirit of Classic Plus. It's just how it's implemented into that sequence, how it's implemented into that experience to make Classic Plus true to Classic while being somewhat modern.
I think you see this kind of evidenced in the private server scene as well, where there's so many vanilla servers and very few BC, Wrath, Cataclysm servers. So as we continue here, we're going to be kind of marking all of these items where you can tie them to the identity of specific expansions, because I think that it's important to consider if, again, your goal is vanilla Classic Plus. So, item 1 here is obviously the Burning Crusade. Next are collections. Those of you may remember this was first introduced in Wrath, and at first they were character specific, and then I think it was later in Cataclysm they were made to be account wide, but this would be a Wrath change. And in terms of vanilla, it would be a pretty big thing, especially considering how much of an issue inventory space is in vanilla. I think most people will agree. And something to keep in mind here is that, again, this isn't saying that this is better or worse, but as weird as it sounds, one of the big parts of vanilla's identity is the lack of quality of life features. The fact that inventory is so scarce, there's no dual spec, no guild banks, collections, gold being harder to come by, no flying, switching weapons being annoying because of weapon skill.
I will say just on the aspect of dual spec is one of the most beloved features in Anniversary. Everybody loves dual spec. I hear some people are against it, right? Some people are absolutely against it, they dislike it or whatever. But for the most part, people like dual spec. So I do think certain quality of life changes are actually good. It's the implementation of quality of life that's important. The implementation of how you add things to the game and how you make it work. That's the big issue with retail, is the amount of quality of life shoved in your face that it becomes so much quality of life that is no longer quality of life. It's annoyance. Whereas vanilla has essentially no quality of life, that every little quality of life you give makes the game experience smoother. But the moment you shove in a billion quality of life effects, it's no longer classic. It's this weird amalgamation that's not fun. For example, in SOD, the keyring. You could add toys to the keyring, and everybody loved that. That was a good feature. It was a good extension. It was a very shitty version of the collections tab. But everybody enjoyed it because it let people, have the gobbo toys, let people turn into random things. It was an enjoyable experience for a lot of people. So is collections as a whole bad for the game? No. But it's how you implement collections that makes it a good or a bad feature, not the system itself.
Switching specs being annoying because stats on armor aren't one size fits all like they are today. And as annoying as all of this sounds, like it or hate it, it's undeniably a part of the identity of vanilla World of Warcraft. And many make the slippery slope argument that eventually led to the level boosts in WoW Token. When you start removing all of these inconvenience, eventually just the core mechanics of the game itself become inconvenient. So people just pay to skip it. And then you're at a point to where like you can... people just pay to skip it. And then you're at a point to where like...
And I just want to say about this, currently in Classic, you can pay with gold or in a Discord server for somebody to level you 1 to 60. You can buy gold, and a lot of people do. People will literally run dungeons for you, where you sit at the entrance, and then if the gear drops, you pay for the gear. For example, the Hodge runs, SGC runs. GDKPs don't exist anymore in like Anniversary, but it's one of the most popular forms of raiding in Cataclysm, MoP, and all those other versions of the game. The honor farm was changed, and a lot of people have effectively sat in AV, not PvPing, because the PvPing is not efficient. They AFK AV grinded till rank 14 to get their rank 14. People buy full-on level profession kits. Now, I'm not saying everybody does everything here, but people already pay or do as much as they can to skip this. Now, I know it's not the entire player base. I don't want to sit here and like say every person, every player, of course not. But people already do all this.
You can purchase every form of character progression that the game has to offer. Some people counter this by calling it a fallacy, to which I say, bullshit. Told you so, by the way. You can never make that argument ever again in regards to Blizzard Entertainment. We all saw what happened. Although it is ancient history, no one has forgotten. At least I haven't forgotten. But it's just something to keep in mind with the quality of life features in regards to vanilla. If your goal is to have a vanilla feel and identity, adding too many quality of life will kind of remove from that. So, account-wide collections, as stated, was Cataclysm. Next.
I do just want to say in regards to the WoW token, pretty much everybody saw it coming when they added the TBC bundle. I forget its name, the Dark Portal bundle, back in TBC Classic. When that happened, and Asmongold did the /spit movement, and then they removed /spit from the game. The issue is, we saw that the WoW token was going to come. People may have like denied that, but anybody that denied that was truly not paying attention to the level of attention that you should have paid. Because we knew for a fact it was going to go from the Dark Portal bundle all the way to the WoW token eventually, and hey, that's what happened.
This is 1 versus 1 duel arenas, and these are kind of interesting because arenas are of course Burning Crusade, as mentioned, but the smallest bracket was 2 versus 2, so this one I'm just going to leave blank, and I do think that it has a lot of identity with vanilla World of Warcraft because...
outside of Stormwind, Orgrimmar, outside of Ironforge, dueling rings are very common where people just sit here and duel outside the capital city all the time. So this is honestly one of the most vanilla features. 1v1 duel arenas are 100% a vanilla feature. I'll die on that hill, but 1v1 duel arenas are 100% A-OK for vanilla.
Dueling is a big part of its identity. When arenas came out, as great as they were, dueling started to become more and more scarce for a couple of reasons. One was that there's now this official ranked mode for deathmatch elimination style of PvP. It wasn't 1 versus 1, but it still fit the bill of the only objective being to kill the other players. And 2, people left Ironforge and Orgrimmar, so these previously active dueling spots kind of faded. And as far as I remember, there really wasn't a popular spot in Shatrath to replace that. Although admittedly, that's anecdotal evidence on my part. And I forgot number 3 here is that, and a lot of people forget about this, but Crossrealm Battlegrounds came out very late in vanilla, and before then, many of the servers would have very large queues, so in between Battlegrounds, they would be out dueling in front of Orgrimmar and Ironforge. So this was eventually changed late in vanilla, but for 90% of vanilla's lifespan, dueling.
Look at this Giga Chad's gear. Thunder Fury, Hungering Cold, and he has like fucking tier 3 on. Like, is this actually like vanilla footage, or is this somebody's, no, because of cursive and all this stuff? I'm not sure. This feels like this might be classic, low quality, like he put the classic footage at 140, like 144p on purpose. But if this was an actual vanilla player, this is a fucking Giga Chad right here. Or private server footage, yeah, it could also be private server footage.
Was this very, very big thing and very active thing for many servers.
Oh, it's Kungen.
So
Kungen,
I think
yeah.
it is a very large part of its identity. So that's why I'm kind of reluctant to tie this to Burning Crusade. Now, would it be good is another question, and I think it would. And the reason I say this is because it's already been proven. There's actually been a few community-run dual 1v1 based events that were wildly popular, drawing hundreds of thousands of viewers. The OTK one was the biggest one, and I've said this many times before. If Blizzard were to add some sort of system to better support these community-run tournaments where you wouldn't have to duel underneath Orgrimmar or some random spot in the middle of nowhere to prevent griefing, and they actually gave like spectator tools that broadcasters could use, they would be less annoying to do, they would happen more often, and it would bring a lot of eyeballs and activity to the game. I mean, these tournaments drew hundreds of thousands of viewers.
I remember the Zika versus Nuts battle. That was really sick.
For the participants and viewers, and it's kind of shocking, honestly, that they haven't nourished this already proven very popular activity.
Oh, damn.
It's been one of the biggest misses within the classic community, in my opinion. And in terms of vanilla identity, it's a community-based thing, and community is one of the major pillars that people say vanilla is known for. So yeah, I'm actually a huge fan of this suggestion, especially if you can spectate it in game and it has like spectator tools and it's sort of molded for tournaments and broadcasts. New player character models, if you remember, this was a Draenor change for most of the models.
So before he says his piece, I'm gonna say, so long as it's a toggle, I don't care. If it's not a toggle, I don't want it. But so long as it's toggleable, it's okay. But my other reason for not wanting this is if they have to make new player character models that work in the game, I wonder how much effort and energy that's going to take away from things that a Classic Plus actually needs. Because this isn't a need, this is a want. And I don't know if it's necessarily super important enough for the entire Classic Plus community to be like, yay, new player models, this is huge for all of us. Whereas this might just be like a mild feature or like a mild situation at the end of the day. So I'm neither for nor against it, so long as it doesn't take away from anything else from Classic.
And then I think they finished them in Legion, and this is really aesthetic. Personally, I don't see the point. I imagine it would be a toggled option for personal preference. If the reason for doing it is that vanilla graphics are bad, I don't think that's as big of an issue as people make it out to be. And I say this actually having recently dived into OSRS, which is a game that looks like it was made on the effing N64. Like, you can actually count the polygons, and yet it has charm, and it's insanely popular. Its graphics haven't slowed it down at all, in my opinion. And if you're speaking strictly World of Warcraft here, one of the reasons why it became popular to begin with is because of its graphics, because they have this charm to them. And although it isn't the sole reason, I do think nostalgia is a reason why people play vanilla World of Warcraft.
A very big
reason. There's nothing wrong with that. Just as how there's nothing wrong with loading up Mario on the NES that you played when you were a kid, or cooking a recipe that your mom made. Some people like to relive things from their childhood. So I just kind of see this as an unnecessary change. It can only take away from the identity, which I think it would be best for them to serve as their major anchor point for the supposed version of Classic Plus that may or may not exist. I don't know, it just seems unnecessary to me. So, in-game events, this is a hard one because it's so vague. It reads, new events that offer different small quests and casual gameplay around the world. These will be released between large updates.
I'm actually for this because I'm looking at it from the sword perspective of, you know, the, not Ajara, from the Ashen Veil PvP event, the Blood Moon event, from the Blackrock Eruption event. those were fun events. They weren't done perfectly. There's a lot wrong with them. But they were rather fun events that added a little bit of content to do, gave people a reason to log on and play or do an event or just try to get things done and catch up with things. So overall, this is okay. There's nothing wrong with this. It really does depend on how this works. If it's incursions, fuck no. If it's an Ashenvale event, so long as it's tweaked so we don't get some weird bugs or weird bullshit that we had in like phase 1 of SOD, would be good. Blood Moon event was really fun. Having the Blood Moon event for so many phases was not fun. Blackrock Eruption was fun. And then we didn't get any more events after that. But like the events are actually fun. They don't all have to be as massive. They could just be smaller things, right? They could add some more stuff to the Dark Moon Fair or things of that nature. So this is okay.
So it's described as something like a holiday event, which vanilla has, of course, but it's just not very clear. Would it be something of that caliber, or would it be something like incursions from Season of Discovery, which were an abomination in terms of vanilla identity because you just repeated the same quest over and over in one instanced corner of the world, never leaving that spot and earning thousands of gold in the process. So we'll just put a question mark on that one for now. Pet battles were missed. Personally, I'm not a...
He's about to say he's not a fan of it, but I gotta be real. There is nothing wrong with pet battles. It's a fun little gimmick that people enjoy, so let them do it. It doesn't take away from doesn't take away from Classic's identity. It's not a big deal at all if they add pet battles to Classic Plus. It's kind of gimmicky, and I don't know how many people would even care about this, but it gives collectors and people with time to kill something to do. It's just a little extra thing. There's nothing super major here. I wouldn't say it's an amazing feature, but there's absolutely not a singular thing truly wrong with it.
Fan. I'm not saying that Mists is bad, but it's so far from vanilla at that point in the game's life in like every aspect: gameplay, lore, aesthetic, design. And if they did this, it would have to compared with collections, or it would just be impossible. And I don't know. It just seems really out there. So you may disagree, but for me, it's a hard no. Leveling profession improvements, the ability to make more useful gear for yourself as you level, and to be able to craft it at level appropriate trade skill levels. So this is one of the so-called flaws with vanilla, is that unless you're using the auction house, by the time you level stuff up in professions, a lot of the times it's too low level. At least past level 20-ish, I'd say. In the early levels, you can make quite a lot of useful stuff, especially if you're an engineer. I think that professions are very important, and there definitely is room for improvement without hurting the identity of vanilla. I would say that I'm a fan of this change if it makes other professions more competitive with engineer, since that's such an overused profession in vanilla. It would be nice to see more alchemists and enchanters and blacksmiths and whatnot. So I would say I'm a fan of this if it makes the whole profession ecosystem more competitive and more diverse. And if
professions as a whole are definitely needed to be improved for Classic Plus, because as it stands, professions aren't the greatest thing in Classic. You take engineering because it's just how strong it is, and then whatever secondary profession you need for a specific piece of gear or specific play style. So I think 100% professions need not necessarily a ginormous revamp, just more stuff, more things that let you actually have a reason to level your professions and keep them up to date and like grind recipes and things like that.
It doesn't go like too crazy, like you're crafting epics or something at level 20 and you make the leveling like really trivial. It wouldn't be good if they went too crazy with it, I think. Next we have new class abilities and spells.
I don't know what direction he's going to take here, but we need new class abilities and spells, especially ones that are unique to this version of Classic. I don't want them to rip spells from Wrath or TBC or Mr. Pandaria. I want them to build proper classes and proper identities and abilities to make the classes work. Boomkins need more spells and they need more mana. They need to be done better. Shadow Priests need, more threat management. They need less mana issues. They need some new spells to make them more competitive versus a Warlock or a Mage. Warlocks and Mage need more than one button spam in raiding. Like, that's what they are. So for the most part, I do agree with this, that there needs to be class abilities and spells added to the game on top of balancing what's already there. But like, to a lot of people, that's completely not Classic, and I disagree with that statement. It is Classic. Classic got a lot of patches, 12 patches worth of 12 major patches, mind you, till we got to 1.12. Classic at 1.0 was a completely different game. At launch was incredibly different than what we got at the end. So they need to keep doing more balancing and patches to make the game better.
Brand new abilities and or spells unique to this version of Classic. Not really much to say here. It's a pretty standard request for Classic Plus. One thing to note here is that it would differ from the Season of Discovery.
Discovery went way too far.
A lot of the abilities from that were from other expansions, which sort of got into that issue of bleeding into the identity of other expansions. Like, if you have Penance as a priest, you're going to kind of feel like you're a Wrath of the Lich King priest. But according to this, that wouldn't happen since they would be unique to this version. Honor Rewards redesign. Move Honor Rewards away from the original model and towards a more seasonal model where new Honor Rewards are added to coincide with new PvE raid tier updates.
I'm 100% for this. The entire honor system, not just the rewards, but the entire honor system in vanilla is by far one of the most dogshit experiences known to mankind. I will die on that hill. I'll argue with anybody. The entire PvP scene of vanilla needs to be redone from the ground up. It is not a good system. It is not fun. It is not intuitive. I was doing 1.5, 1.2, 2 million honor weeks back in 2019. Abject dog shit from the ground up. It is not a good system. It needs to be completely redone. I'll stand on that.
So, if you haven't noticed yet, although I wouldn't say that I'm a purist, I am kind of resistant to change that takes it too far away from its vanilla identity. But even saying that, having done the rank 14 grind, I will tell you that it is atrociously bad. A lot of people give me flack for this, but it just is. At least on competitive servers, you have to play 14 hours a day, non-stop, and it suffers from the sunk cost fallacy, and you can't take any breaks or else you just waste all of your effort. It definitely rewards time more than skill. In a lot of ways, it's pretty representative of the horribly balanced systems that you would find in MMOs of the early mid-2000s golden era. But I've always thought that if the reward system wasn't so bad, more people would PvP. So really it depends, since this is pretty vague, but it sounds like it would be kind of a hybrid with how arenas work, where you would probably do a less harsh grind for honor for a season, and then when the next raid tier is released, another season starts with better rewards. So it depends, it's so vague, but it has potential because I do think that there is a lot of room for improvement with the current shitty rank 14 system, for lack of a better word. Next is the WoW token. So I could go into a whole thing about this, but over the course of like 7 years, I feel like I've made every possible argument against them. So I'm honestly just kind of burnt out in justifying my reasoning.
In regards to the WoW token, I'm going to keep it real. I'm going to keep it a buck with everybody. I think it's coming, and I think it's absolutely fucking terrible for the game. I think the WoW token is by and far one of the singular worst things you can add to the game. I think the WoW token, dog shit. I think the WoW token is terrible. I think the WoW token is bad for the game. But in one of my latest videos, when I said, let's not do the WoW token, let's permaban people that buy gold, I had a lot of classic Andes tell me who am I, how dare I tell them how to play the game. They don't want to fucking level and grind characters and gold. They want to raid and PvP, so they're going to pay to skip it because it's boring and the journey is terrible. So of course they want the WoW token. Of course they want to buy gold. How dare we interfere with how they play the game? And honestly, I stand by it. Go fuck yourself. Get permabanned. I don't agree with buying gold. Now, if they add the WoW token, it's what it is. If the WoW token is added to the game, Blizzard has the metrics, they know what people want, and they're going to do it. So fair enough. Go ahead and do it. I just truly, absolutely don't think it's good for the game. But I'm 100% sure that Classic Plus is getting it, because Blizzard needs to make money to justify the budget cost for Classic Plus, and they're going to make their money one way or another, and the WoW token is one of those major ways they're going to make a lot of money for Classic Plus.
I'll just say that I'm personally against them for a variety of reasons. Yeah, no 40-minute rant for me today. Sorry, guys. Anyways, class talent adjustments, streamlining, and improving class talent trees to make weaker specializations in classes more viable, while still maintaining the overall feel and flow of classic combat. Again, I love most things with vanilla, but my dream for Classic Plus in terms of class balance has always been something closer to the Burning Crusade, where each class and spec still have their own unique identity, and at the same time, there aren't any that are like completely useless like you have in vanilla. So I like this one. This is something that I actually liked with Season of Discovery. It was pretty cool to see Shadow Priests and Retribution Paladins and Elemental Shamans in a vanilla raiding setting. I think it supports more ways to play it. It supports people rolling alts more, and overall I think it makes people want to play the game more, which is always a good thing. Account-wide perks and progression.
I will say in regards to, like you said, class talent adjustments, there needs to be a lot of adjustments. Shadow Priest doesn't need to have that much threat. There's no reason for that. Boomkin doesn't need that dog shit mana regeneration. Shadow Priest also needs some better mana regen. Paladins need taunt. Bear Druids could be slightly better. There can be some slight tweaks to how classes work here or there. Overall, you can add new abilities. You can add new content. You can add new systems. You can add new gameplay designs and philosophies to classes, so long as you don't give us extreme levels of power. Power is always, and I'm saying this, power is always too much. It's too excessive. And if they give power, they can't take it away. So they shouldn't give power, they should add smoothness. Make classes feel better to play, and try to equalize the damage a little bit, so not everybody's just Warlock or Mage spamming, or not everybody's playing Fury Warrior because it's 5 times higher than everyone else's damage. They need to streamline things a little bit. Don't nerf Warriors. Make everyone else somewhat better, and just don't make Warriors scale as hard. Do something to fix that without breaking the game. That's the hard part. You gotta balance the game around its strengths and weaknesses.
It makes people want to play the game more, which is always a good thing. Account-wide perks and progression systems. A system to allow you to gather points and spend them on account-wide bonuses such as quality of life, convenience, encouraging playing alts, or specializing in specific activities.
Now, before you respond to this, I talked about this in one of my own videos, and what I said there was that it depends on what this looks like. If it's just like a new like account-wide tree, skill tree, where you put points to like 1% extra movement speed, you can only do 5% extra total. You can get like, 5% extra chance for after putting 5 points into there to get, double node resources, or very small, mild things like that, where it gives you an account-wide advantage, but nothing game-breaking. And I know movement speed can be game-breaking, so I'm not going to say movement speed is perfect there. I'll just give an example. Or, for example, something along the lines of, for every max-level character, you get an extra 5% or 10% XP on your next character. So if you level 5 characters to max level, you get 25% or 50% extra XP for the next character you level. There are small things you can do that make the game feel good without breaking the game, but it's just like something to keep in mind overall about what that is or what that looks like. And it really depends on what this progression system is before I can say yes or no.
So, another pretty big question mark here, because it's very vague. It kind of sounds like heirlooms, maybe, which I personally don't like. That's part of Wrath Identity, by the way, if you remember. Personally, I think leveling in vanilla should remain largely the same, aside from something to eliminate boosting. Not that the leveling in vanilla is perfect, but I think that a lengthy leveling campaign is a very large part of vanilla's identity, so if you were to make it faster, that would be a major step away from kind of the whole point to begin with, in my opinion, at least. But that's kind of getting off track, because this isn't even saying heirlooms. That's just speculation on my part. If you guys have played old school RuneScape, they kind of have a similar system to this with its leagues, which are essentially seasons from Classic. They're new launches of the game with alternate rule sets, and if you participate, you earn points on your main account to spend on cosmetic rewards. And I think it's a good system as long as it's cosmetic. Again, if you go too crazy with the quality of life, I think you get too far away from the identity of vanilla, but
I do like that for Classic Plus is they add a new season once every 2 years or whatever, where you level 1 to 60 with new systems, new gameplay, new mechanics. And at the end of that season, you get some currency to buy unique things for your main account collection, right? So at the end of the season, you get your character merged into, your character roster. And then you get like, all these rewards and currencies to spend at like, that season's cosmetic vendor. Here you go, there's this new unique mount you can buy. There's this new unique transmog or like toy or things like that. That would be a good system. I would actually like that. That would be really...
Maybe something like, say like a cool tabard or a special pet, or maybe even a title or a mount that are unique to this version of vanilla isn't too overboard. And it's something like, hey, look at all the stuff I've done to kind of show off to other people. I think that's important in an MMO. Showing off to other people is a very, very underrated thing in the genre. Playable high elves is very interesting.
Showing off is one of the biggest flexes in MMO is, look at my cool shit. Look at what I got. I got this and you don't. I'm better than you. Look at me. Look at my eyes. I am better than... That's just one of the core tenets of like MMO gameplay. And playable high elves for the Horde and Alliance. So as in high elf, you have to pick. If you go blood elf, you join the Horde. If you go high elf, you join the Alliance. And then that way, both sides get high elves and blood elves, and everybody's happy. They have the same classes, same things, except one's eyes are green, one's eyes are blue. I don't care. I think it's good for the game. Let it be. I truly don't care.
This is another common request of Classic Plus, although that people usually say that the Alliance get high elves and the Horde get ogres. I do think it has potential, but they would definitely need their own starting zone, which leads us into revisiting known but unexplored zones. Visiting zones that were part of Warcraft history but were never playable in original WoW, such as Mount Hyjal, Uldum, Gilneas. Now, you might say, okay, Cataclysm, right? But I don't think so. As long as they're done in a vanilla style. The Mount Hyjal Cataclysm is very different from the one in vanilla. And I also think that if they're really big zones with similar style quests of vanilla, there's a lot of room for other things, because this could mean, more levels to grind, or more raids and dungeons with these unique aesthetics and lore. Yeah, I think it's a great idea, but the execution has to be good, and they really have to nail that vanilla feeling. I think really big, mostly open zones with like quests to kill 10 Hyjal scorpions and get 4 deer antlers or whatever. Like, make it as basic of quests that you would find in original vanilla World of Warcraft. Next is player housing.
I do absolutely want to say that when you look at it, when you think about it, at the end of the day, the new zones are incredibly important, because without the new zones, or revisiting the existing zones in Cataclysm and whatnot, but the original, the vanilla version, it would expand the world, give content, and let us experience the world in a way that's not retail or Cataclysm or MOP or any of these other places that use locations from existing expansions, from the existing lore, but made in their own way. The original vanilla version of the game is absolutely okay. It's absolutely good to reuse Uldum, Gilneas, Hyjal, and make it classic in an authentic manner to classic. Some private servers have done a really good job about this, and I think they should adhere to that. I think they should stick with that and keep doing what the player base really, really wants. New zones, both original and unique, and existing, designed with the classic mindset, the classic ethos. Like, I don't want any kind of like flying or things like that in Classic Plus. I think we need, more flight paths, more zeppelins and boats to make the world more accessible. But like, adding these new zones and adding flying would defeat the purpose of that. So you need to keep it to vanilla without going to those future quality of life changes that truly took away from what made vanilla.
So this, from what I understand, is now War Within. Please correct me if I'm wrong. I'm not really up to date with current World of Warcraft. And you can also, of course, say Garrisons from Draenor. And I'm personally not a fan of it, because it gets back to what I was saying earlier. And, a huge issue with the Warlords of Draenor was that it takes people out of the world. For it to work in World of Warcraft, it would definitely have to be instanced. I agree with that. But for every person lording in their own private instanced house, that's just another player that isn't loitering around in Stormwind or Orgrimmar. And you may say, okay, well, what's the big deal with that? But one of the things that makes or breaks MMOs isn't necessarily even how popular they are, it's how popular they appear to be. Many people remember their first time walking into Ironforge or Orgrimmar and seeing it packed with people. They're at the auction house, they're leveling trade skills, forming a dungeon or a raid, or just loitering, whatever it may be. It's busy, it's active, and there are players everywhere. You feel like your time spent is more valuable because you see visually so many people doing the same thing. There's a huge bandwagon effect in the MMO genre, and
I will say he's 100% correct. Not just the bandwagon effect alone is an MMO can be good, but if nobody's playing, it's a dead game and it will die. People don't care about quality as much as quantity of people playing that game. The more people playing, the more successful the game will be. And the less people playing, it doesn't matter the quality of the product, the quality of the game, the social media, the service. People care about the perceived value of their time spent, of their money wasted. And if they don't feel like other people are playing, they feel like they're a sucker and they lost out, and they don't want that. Which is like a problem with housing is, if housing actually has a lot of really cool features, a lot of really cool things that makes you not be in the open world, it'll be a huge net negative to Classic. But if housing is just a cosmetic thing where there's no benefits, no mailbox, no auction house, no farm, no resources, no nothing, just a place for you to go, I don't know, ERP or roleplay or whatever like that. Yeah, sure, that's perfectly fine. That's not going to take away from the game because everybody's still going to be in Stormwind. They're still going to be at the auction house, around the mailbox, around the bank. The moment your house has any quality of life features, anything to make it a better experience than being in Stormwind or Orgrimmar or Thunderblood or wherever else, it's failed. It's no longer Classic. It's a net negative that is just completely against the entire spirit and situation and vibes of Classic. So I'll stand on that.
Killer is that if people get the idea that it's dead or dying, it makes them feel like they're wasting their time. Why level if there are no guilds to find at the end game? Why farm gold if the auction house is going to be dead and no one's going to be there to use it? It's this killer cycle that just decimates MMOs, and these developers know it. It's why in the Mists of Pandaria that they introduced the cross-realm zoning. This has kind of gotten this reputation of being really bad and sort of sapping away at the community structure of the game, because you see a different group of people each time you log in, essentially, and there's no real foundation to build a community that's unique to your server. And while this is true, it was a necessary evil, because at this point so many people were quitting and servers were just dying. What do you think reads better? A new feature that merges server communities for a more active world? Or World of Warcraft shuts down 70 servers amid subscription decline? That doesn't really make you want to play the game, does it? Why would you start?
Anytime this kind of information comes out, player decline, game dying, game over, yada yada yada, it straight up has such a negative spiral that kills the game. For example, WildStar is a good example. If WildStar had come out 1 year later, WildStar would have been a huge success because WildStar would have come out early WoD, mid-WoD, where WoD was dying, and WildStar could have taken this decline of WoW and skyrocketed. Except WildStar came out when WoD was at its peak, and then people quit WildStar to go play WoD. Because, WildStar just wasn't it wasn't that, yada, yada. If WildStar had been 1 year later, it would have been able to take more from WoW than it actually lost. And then when WildStar died, it never made a comeback, it just fully died off, and then nobody ever came back to the game. The perceived failure is more important than actual failure. If they perceive success, the game will succeed. If people perceive failure, they're just going to write it off and move on. It's just a huge problem with gaming in general.
An MMO that's clearly declining. If all these other people are quitting, it must be kind of bad, right? Something's wrong here. So optics are so important. It's also why they started even hiding subscription numbers during Draenor after they had begun to plummet. So yeah, as an MMO developer, like it or not, you have to, at all costs, either keep your game popular or keep the illusion that your game is popular. And as we learned in Draenor, instanced player housing is the antithesis of that. People were no longer in the major cities, They were now alone in their own garrisons, which created this feeling of isolation, not only for themselves, but also for the people that would have seen them had garrisons not been in the game. So for me, this is a hard no. In fact, I think it's kind of game-breaking territory of changes, in my opinion. Achievements, not really much to say there.
I don't think achievements are a bad system. I'm gonna be real, I think achievements are perfectly fine. I think achievements are worth adding to the game. I think achievements are actually a good system, and there's nothing really wrong with that. You may disagree with that, but I think achievements, as far as the game goes, or the world goes, or the universe goes, achievements don't hurt anything. As far as Classic Plus goes, having achievements is actually good, because it gives people a reason to grind, a reason to track, a reason to do, a reason to find, a reason to go collect things. Because people like hitting metrics, they like checking off things off a checklist. And giving people a ginormous, forever growing checklist with do this dungeon, do this raid, get these achievements, kill the boss in this particular way. These things actively help the game and make it a better experience, in my opinion, so long as it's not gimmicky for the sake of gimmickiness.
Wrath change by itself in vanilla, maybe not a huge deal, but again, if you start adding all of these features from other expansions, you do run the risk of it simply not feeling like vanilla. This is actually quite timely though, because I recently made a video about Wrath of the Lich King, and I mentioned how achievements sort of marked this era where the game started to become more heavily goal-oriented, and people just kind of stopped exploring for the sake of exploring, but instead for achievement points. There had to be some sort of reward now for every endgame action, and it was now possible to experience the game correctly and incorrectly instead of just experiencing it. I think that a lot of this just has to do with how the player base has kind of changed.
That's an incredibly valid point that I didn't really think about, is that the player base has, for some, like when you look at Classic 2019, it was a lot about creating your own objectives, creating your own fun, versus Classic 2020, Classic 2021, where it was about hitting metrics, doing things, playing the right way, doing it the right way. And I feel like that is a slow development, a slow continuation across the board of the player base getting, I guess, progressively more and more goal-oriented, more and more reward-oriented. I did the task, give me my reward. And without a reward for the task, you just don't feel like it was worth your time or energy or effort.
Over the years, I think as people understand the game more, they naturally become more goal-oriented. And back then it was much more wholesome because it was our only choice because we knew so little. So a lot of that is out of the control of Blizzard, but again, if you want to talk identity here, it does mark this period where the game started to become much more goal-oriented, which may make it not feel like vanilla. Cross-realm play, kind of went over this in the housing section. It has benefits and downsides. It makes the game more active at the expense of individual server communities. Ideally, the game is just active, so there's...
So my thing with Cross-realm, before he says it again, is I think Cross-realm is fine for, and hear me out, battlegrounds. So AV, AB, Warsong, Gulch, Zara, Crater, stuff like that. I think cross-realm queues are fine for that. And not at launch, but 1, 2, maybe 3 years into the game, adding LFD as a cross-realm queue for dungeons and leveling dungeons only. So 1 to 50 or something like that. And even that's kind of pushing it. But cross-realm queues do have benefits of keeping the game alive for the less played content, right? Nobody's really running leveling dungeons. People are selling boosts. It's much, much harder to find a group or a leveling dungeon in Anniversary than it is to find somebody selling a boost for that dungeon. So adding LFD for the leveling dungeon solves some of that issue, but that's also a core issue of the game itself and how people play it. And LFD is a band-aid fix and not an actual fix. So I do think that cross-realm queues are bad across the board because servers do matter. But if Classic Plus is going to be one mega server anyways, I don't really see it being a necessity. It's going to be like for PvE versus PvP players on different servers playing on the battlegrounds together. But aside from that, I don't really think there's much of a need for cross-realm gameplay.
There's no need for it, but as we know, it's not an ideal world, and who knows what'll happen. People will probably lose interest at some point, and it may become a necessity. Yeah, for this I would say hold off and wait and see if it does become an issue, and then just cross that bridge when you get to it, if you get to it. Honor system redesign, ground up redesign of the honor system, removing the hard honor cap, and making the system more evergreen and continually engaging. So
I said this before as well, but just a season. Every time a new raid season drops, so every 6 months, a brand new PvP season, you have to go grind honor, and then you use honor as rewards to buy, I grinded 100,000 honor, I turn on 100,000 honor to go buy a cosmetic, or to go buy my blue shoulders for that season, or whatever, stuff like that. I think the honor system as a whole needs to be completely redesigned from the ground up. What the right system is not like, I'm not going to sit here and act like a PvP expert, but the entire honor system from the ground up needs to be completely redone. Every element of it. It is not a great system whatsoever.
I went over this already. I do agree that the honor system sucks. I would welcome change, but it's really kind of vague, so it's hard to comment. In regards to it being evergreen, I think that is good, as long as that means that you don't have to do the entire grind in a sprint and you have to play X amount of hours in X amount of time, or else you lose all progress. If you're allowed to let life happen, and then you can pick up where you left off, a few weeks or months down the line, I think it'll encourage more people to PvP, and that's a good thing. War mode, so this would be BFA. They are the alternative to PvP servers, where you opt into PvP in the open world via a toggled option in your main faction cities. It's an interesting idea. It would certainly reduce angry forum posts of people who regret rolling on a PvP server. It's definitely a quality of life change. I think a lot of the more hardcore PvPers will say absolutely not to this. Next are brand new zones, completely new playable areas with...
The fact that he just skipped over war mode that fast, without agreeing or disagreeing, is interesting. He's neither for nor against it. He doesn't even seem to care. I'll say my point of view here. I don't think people actually want PvP servers. I think if you gave a majority of the people on PvP servers the option to have war mode, everybody would take it. The people against war mode are the vocal minority who really, truly, absolutely want war mode, and I think most other people do not give a shit. I think most people playing on PvP servers are playing on PvP servers because their friends are, or their guild is, or their community is. And if they could play on a PvE server and all their friends played there with them, they would do that. So I think having war mode would kill PvP servers, because I don't think 90% of people on PvP servers want to PvP. I'm not going to sit here and act like that's an accurate percentage or an accurate statement. I just don't think a lot of people truly, absolutely want to PvP. So my opinion here is not the perfect opinion. My opinion here isn't I'm 100% correct. I believe most people don't want a PvP. I believe most people are on PvP servers just because their friends and communities are on there. But that is just my opinion. But I feel like if Blizzard polled it, I feel like I would be correct. I feel like I would absolutely be correct.
Absolutely not to this. Next are brand new zones, completely new playable areas with unique lore added to the Eastern Kingdoms and Kalimdor. So
I want this part here so much because I have a map right behind me. You guys, let me show y'all real quick. And it's got every single cut zone content on the whiteboard, from the north of North Stratholme, east of the hinterlands, the Arathi coast area, in between where the what's it called in Cataclysm, the Twilight Highlands is. So many areas, the area between Ironforge and Stormwind, the area to the east of Red Ridge, the area south of the Blasted Lands and the Gurubashi. You have all these zones like southern Unguro, you have north of Unguro, you have the Stone Talon, you have Hydril, north of Moonglade, the islands, you have Zuldar, you have Telebim, you have Zuldazar, the original idea of it, you have the Isle of Dr. Lepidus, you have the Isle of, you have Gilligam's Isle, you have the original Broken Isles or the Dragon Isles, you have all the islands and locations from the Second War. There's so many locations that are part of the game world that would truly be unique to Classic if they did it. And I 100% think they need to do it. I stand by that.
So, actual new zones. And I'm a fan of it, as long as they're part of the Eastern Kingdoms and Kalimdor, since, again, that's such a huge part of the identity of vanilla. So theoretically, they could add max level zones, which opens up new lore and ideas for settings for dungeons and raids, and even fill in some of the low level areas, like that awkward late 20s. And
look at this area right here. Wait.
Lore.
Look at this little thing right here. Dunmorrow. Alwyn Forest. The fuck is this meant to be? Is this meant to be Stormwind? It says Stormwind's over here. You can see the Stormwind icon.
For setting.
The Stormwind's here. So what the hell is this? This isn't in the game. It's not on any of the maps anymore. This is some old leftover thing. Same thing as these islands down here. Look at this shit. That could be a zone too. Fuck it. Bring back the content, the ideas they had, the plans they had, and put that shit back in there.
For dungeons and raids, and even fill in some of the low-level areas, like that awkward late 20s, early 30s spot that some people have trouble with, and they kind of dungeon grind to progress. 20 and 40 player raids. Really, I think this is kind of a given. This is on pretty much everyone's list for Classic Plus.
New raids,
so
it's not a big
really
deal.
Much to say here other than I think it's really important that it's horizontal progression as opposed to vertical. If you don't know, vertical progression is how modern WoW does it, or at least it used to. I haven't played since Shadowlands, so I guess I don't truly know. But at least when I played it, whenever a new raid tier was released, pretty much every single item from the previous raid tier is replaced very quickly, and it's all made to be irrelevant.
Yeah, that is one of the shittiest parts about modern WoW and retail WoW is nothing you do matters. By the next patch, you can completely skip over all the raiding gear, immediately get catch-up gear, and like immediately go into the new raid and grind the latest, newest, strongest gear. And I hate that. I hate that seasonal mentality of all your progress gets replaced like that. A horizontal progression is quite literally just MC comes out, then the next raid after MC's in Blackwing Lair, it's a brand new raid that is a step above MC, but a step below Blackwing Lair. But some of the pieces in this new raid are like last all the way till Nax, or to the raid after Nax. And then you go to Blackwing Lair and you replace quite a few pieces of gear from the 1.5 raid there. But you don't replace everything. This one ring stays the whole time. This helmet stays the whole time. These shoulders stays the whole time. Then you go into, AQ. Then after AQ, there's another raid tier. And in that raid tier, you replace some of the rings. Or like you replace Onslaught Girdle with another belt, but that belt doesn't get replaced till like 2 raids after Nax. Having like your gear last multiple raid tiers, not every piece, you should still be upgrading often. But having to upgrade every piece of gear instantly is a bad feel that all the effort and grind you did isn't worth it. So that's just my opinion on that.
Which I always thought was a shame, because one of Modern's biggest strengths was its raid design. Like, why are you immediately retiring one of your greatest strengths with each and every single patch? This might be kind of tinfoil hat, but personally I think it's done for WoW tokens, since if you do it this way, you now have people buying them every major patch, as opposed to every major expansion. Horizontal progression, on the other hand, is something more like vanilla. Like when the Blackwing Lair releases, you still want to do the Molten Core. Hell, some guilds are even running the Molten Core during Naxxramas for a select few items like, Quick Strike Ring or Thunder Fury. Onslaught Girdle is pretty good. So this style of progression is really core to the identity of vanilla, and correct me if I'm wrong here, but from personal recollection, I think it was Cataclysm is when they kind of transitioned to this more vertical style of progression to where you wouldn't really revisit the old raids once new ones came out. Graphical improvements to lighting, shadows, and surface reflections. Already went over this. I think it's unnecessary personally. The whole idea, it seems, is to play vanilla, so I think it's better to stay closer to that.
I actually disagree with him. I think adding Unreal Engine 5 overlays for shading, lighting, water effects, etc. are perfectly okay and is not a bad feeling. I don't think having the Unreal Engine 5 overlay, which doesn't change the graphics, just improves the look of it. So that lighting and that shadowing and all that stuff, it really truly does add to the world and the vibe. And I don't think at all that it's a bad thing. I agree that high texture models aren't necessarily classic, but Unreal Engine 5 with a toggle on or off is 100% a-okay. I see nothing wrong with that.
Graphics included. To me, it's kind of like replacing the soundtrack with modernized, updated music with more instruments. I'm like, the soundtrack is one of the most nostalgic things with this game, and you know me with nostalgia. I think nostalgia is great. I don't think you want to lose that, especially if you're going to be adding in all of this other stuff. You still want to have some room for nostalgia, and the graphics and soundtrack is a great place for that. New trade skills, new primaries and secondaries, another pretty common request.
I'm 100% okay with this.
Profession earlier, which was the one where you...
Survivalist, carpentry, woodworking, just adding a bunch of new professions for the sake of like having fun little things to do, crafting furniture for your player housing, crafting gimmicky things, some transmog. I'm not sure. Like there's things you can do that aren't bad at all. Survivalism, so you can get rested XP out in the open world. Not that that's necessarily a great thing, but having new professions is perfectly okay.
Got torches in order to light the way in dark areas, and I think it's another thing that has potential. If I were a developer, I personally would stay away from things that were already done, like jewel crafting and inscription and stuff. Similar to the new abilities section, I think it would be better if it's stuff that's completely new to all versions of the game. Here we have more graphical improvements. That's all I gotta say. New battlegrounds, so...
Jara Crater, and I think a bunch of other things could be a-okay. I don't think there's anything wrong with it. I don't think there's anything wrong with like the raid design or the PvP design. Just adding more of that. I want more raids, I want more battlegrounds, I want more reasons to PvP. So having new objective-based PvP like a Dota-esque battleground, like a Jara Crater was meant to be, would be perfect. I think it's good. Add it to the game. What's wrong with it?
Lots of potential here. I mentioned the big one was Ashara Crater, but it's definitely not the only option. They could always do something similar to Cataclysm with the same game modes, but new maps. Remember the battle for Gilneas was the smaller Arathi Basin, and there's another one for Capture the Flag, which name escapes me right now, but obviously again, something that's completely new. New class and race combinations, so this is...
So, for example, Human Hunter, Undead Paladin, Dwarf Shaman, yes. You can. I think this is 100%. They should add this. I see nothing wrong with it. I don't think it takes away from the spirit of Classic. It is what it is.
Another Cataclysm change. Personally, I think that Cataclysm identities in particular should be avoided, since Cataclysm is kind of seen as the antithesis of vanilla. Arena's, okay. It's Burning Crusade identity, but Burning Crusade is so close to vanilla that in a lot of ways it's not as big of a deal as something tied to like Cataclysm or Mists of Pandaria or BFA. Yeah, you want to see Azerite in vanilla?
Oh, champion! I'll suck your cock for some Azerite, champion!
New class?
No, to be fair, conflating Azerite with new class race combos, I don't agree with that. I get where he's coming from, but I disagree. I disagree.
Which is definitely interesting.
The unique classes is a yes. It just really does depend on what the class is, like Bard, Artificer, Necromancer. There's a lot of different classes that could go with that are 100% unique to vanilla. That would be okay. It just really depends on what the class looks like, its power level. I don't want everybody to be the new Necromancer. I don't want there to be 30 Necromancers in my raid team, because that's the best class by a large margin. I don't like that when they do a new class, it's the best class by a large margin. It's always kind of sucked when that happened.
And another one that depends so much on execution. It could be amazing if it feels very vanilla-like and it has maybe a little bit of jank, or really bad. And again, here I appreciate that they say completely new. It kind of seems like they're quite aware of this issue of adopting the identities of other expansions, which I think is good. 10-player raids, this too has a lot of potential. The Blackrock Spire I originally believe was 15-man, then it got scaled down to 10. So,
I think with the 10-man raid, what they were trying to say was like more like the SOD raiding, the flex raiding to a degree. So 20-man raids would be 10-man, 40-man raids would be 20-man. And I'm actually okay with that. I kind of prefer that over the 40-man versus 20-man raiding. I don't necessarily think that 40 versus 20-man is the right way to go, but I do like the idea of more 10-man UBRS mini raids as well, on top of the other content on top of that. So I do think the UBRS scale or style of dungeons is actually good and fun and beneficial to the game overall.
It's not like it's new to vanilla. I think actually technically you can run all dungeons in the game as raids if you wanted to. I've always been a fan of smaller endgame content. I think that as long as their mainstay attractions are 40-man, and those remain to be the most rewarding, because I think that's a big part of Vanilla's identity, because remember, it was Burning Crusaders when they reduced it to 25. But I think if it's maybe a step down in level of rewards of 20-mans, I think it would be fine to have 10-player raids for sure. Cross-realm guilds.
No. I'm gonna be real. They should not be multiple servers. I think it should be PvE server, PvP server, or 1 mega server war mode. Nothing else. I don't think we need 10 servers or 25 servers. That shit's dead. Nobody wants to play on a small server. You got people like Showbeck and others, people that want like a 2,000 person server. But that is not how modern gaming is. And that server would not be as popular. Those kind of servers would be one of the least popular servers. You'd have the one streamer server one. You'd have the Showbeck server, the Greek Wario server, you know, the Asman server. Well, no, Asman couldn't play on those servers. He would not be able to play on the own server he picks. So I don't think small servers and cross-realm guilds and servers are the way to go. I think 1 mega server is the future. Or 2 megas with 1 PvP, 1 PvE server. I think that's the way.
Kind of gets into that same discussion, and I really just depends on server populations, I would say. Personally, I say avoid it if you can, and just cross that bridge when you get to it. Transmog, which is Cataclysm. This one's a hard no.
It's a hard no for him, but if they made a toggle where I can see transmog or I can't see transmog. So if I have a toggle where I disable transmog, so you look like a clown to me, and I see you with your clown transmog, but you see the transmog. I'm cool with that. I have zero qualms with having transmog in the game, so long as it's a toggle that I can turn off so I can see you for the gear you have. Because I'm gonna be real, the idea of saying that transmog is bad doesn't stand up in today's day and age, and I'll tell you all why. In SOD, everybody was a goblin. They had the Deviate Delight transmog, like the item on where you look like a ninja, or like almost everybody didn't look like what they were playing. Almost everybody was some form of cosmetic toy ability or effect instead of actually having their displayable character. I know some people do like having the character, like when you got Thunder Fury, you want to show all that stuff with your gear on. So I'm not saying everybody that played like that, but a lot of people already do soft transmog as is.
No, for me, not only because, again, Cataclysm is the antithesis of vanilla, but come on, look at my channel avatar. Clown suits define vanilla World of Warcraft. It's such a big part of the game to see people in this random mishmash of gear. And if you do actually get a full matching set, it just makes it feel all the more worthwhile to look cool as well as being functional. And lastly, we have playable paladins on the Horde side, as mentioned. For this, I
still say yes.
And the reason for that is fuck the Horde. Yeah, that's really it.
Valid.
Yeah,
Valid.
that about covers it. Again, big disclaimer, who knows if this will happen at all. Classic Plus has been rumored for so long, it's kind of a meme at this point. I will say that the survey itself...
It has become a meme, I'm not gonna lie. I haven't made as many Classic Plus videos lately because it's so far out that it feels stupid to make videos now. Like, I made all the videos I can. I covered War Mode, WoW Token, the survey, a bunch of other things, races and classes, and like new zones, but there's only so much you can really talk about for Classic Plus before you run out of things to talk about. Like, it is what it is. So until Classic Plus comes out, there isn't much more to say.
Is promising.
He's also not wrong in the sense that not everything in the survey is going to be implemented. They're asking a question for a lot of different questions so they can gauge the community and see where people are leaning, what they kind of want. I don't think a lot of things in the survey are going to get added to the game, and I do think a lot of things will get added to the game. I think transmog's coming. I think achievements are coming. I think collections are coming. I think they're going to add toggles to, transmog, to graphics, like the Unreal Engine 5 graphics, like the overlay with the lighting and the shading. I think they're going to add Horde Paladin, Alliance Shaman. I think they're going to add the WoW token. I think a lot of these things are coming. Do I agree with everything coming? No. But Classic Plus isn't classic. It's not vanilla. It's the plus. It's that continuation on the future, on the experience, on the game and the world and the journey.
I think that it does have a lot of potential, and it really just depends on execution and trust in Blizzard, which I know is in short supply these days, but we'll just have to wait and see what happens, I suppose. I hope that they do it, and I hope that if they do it, it doesn't suck Dragon Balls. I'd love to check it out if it looks good. If it wasn't obvious already, I'm pretty much a vanilla Andy. It's my favorite version of the game. It's the most
with some of his takes, we can absolutely tell he's a vanilla Andy, but he's also been a vanilla Andy, an open, honest vanilla Andy for the longest time. There's nothing wrong with being a vanilla Andy. I may not agree with every vanilla Andy take, but vanilla Andy's fought hard for us to get classic, and I kind of want them to stop fighting as hard so we can get a good classic plus, because some of the things, Mad Season said I completely disagree with. But I appreciate the fight they put in for us to get classic 2019. But Classic Plus is not Classic 2019. Classic Plus is building on and continuing the spirit of vanilla, because Classic is not vanilla. Classic is an abomination on vanilla and how vanilla was meant to be played. And Classic Plus is the perfect chance to improve on that spirit and make us have something fun and enjoyable to play and continue and grind towards and enjoy.
Nostalgic for me. Yeah, to me it was much more than a game. It was this cultural phenomenon for a reason. It was social media before social media even existed.
I've said that before multiple times.
I'm a big fan of experiencing it in different...
I kind of wonder if they could merge like a Discord level system and make Battle.net a better launcher. So people actually treated WoW like the social media it's meant to be, where people can talk to each other, discuss things, guild had meaning again. Because Vanilla's biggest thing was the fact that Vanilla came out as essentially one of the very first social medias to ever social media. And we don't really have that in today's day and age. That's not a real thing. There's no WoW social media. It's Facebook, it's Instagram, it's TikTok, it's, YouTube. WoW is not really a social media. It doesn't have that anymore. Nobody's actually hanging out in-game trying to talk to each other. They're hanging out on Discord. You'll talk to your guildies in guild chat, but a lot of guild chats aren't that active. A lot of people are just hanging out on Discord, chatting in Discord. Proximity voice chat could solve things, make the game exciting and fun again. I remember OnlyFans, the proximity voice chat add-on was hilarious, was fun, added a lot of flavor to the game. So it really does depend.
Ways. That does bring me to something here, and this is going to be a channel-related thing, so if you don't care about that, the video is essentially over. But
I'm gonna let it play out, see what
many
he
of
has
you
to
have
say.
noticed that I've kind of backed away from vanilla-related content. Most notably, I've been doing some old-school RuneScape, and although it's mainly World of Warcraft related right now, I want my White Horse series to be very broad, and it's for a couple of reasons. The first main one being that Blizzard really hasn't done anything vanilla related that I'm interested in personally in a very long time. No hate on Season of Discovery enjoyers, but it didn't really scratch that itch for me. It did at first.
Valid.
I was one of the many that quit in Phase 3 with the Sunken Temple raid. I don't know, it just started to feel like not vanilla.
I do agree with him that it is kind of hard to make vanilla content. You can see that with a lot of content creators. Zaryu, Guzu, Savage, a lot of people just aren't making vanilla content. They're not making classic content because there isn't much to make. It's Mr. Pandaria or its anniversary. And you did Season of Mastery, you did Sod, you did Classic 2019. I did Arcanite Reaper. There was the White Main, the Deviate Delight relaunch. There are so many different experiences to Classic that at a certain point you just burn out and you get tired. And I feel like a lot of people are moving on to other games, other experiences, and that's okay. I think Mad Season trying out new games, new topics, new different essay styles for different video games. I think it's fine. The man's been making content for so long about vanilla that it's time for him to just have fun and play and do what he wants to do.
For me, for a variety of reasons, which I won't go into. And as for the 2019 line, Wrath kind of marks the end of Classic for me, personally.
For me as well.
I didn't really care for Cataclysm too much, or anything past that aside from Legions, so it's just not for me. Again, no hate if you're looking forward to Mists or whatever. And as for reason number 2, it's just that vanilla is kind of a game that revolves around not changing. At this point, I have about 700 videos on my channel. Probably 500 of them or so are about vanilla World of Warcraft specifically. I'm not sure, I haven't counted them, but I'd wager it's around that number. But with the game essentially staying the same in its 1.12 state, I've kind of covered everything that I've wanted to cover It's probably one of the most studied games of all time. Anything you could possibly search for it is already on YouTube. Chances are it's made by yours truly. So, I don't know. I guess I just feel like there's not really much else to contribute without repeating myself over and over and sounding like a broken record. At the end of the day,
I wonder if I come up with that. Let me go. Probably not, but I'm
I've wanted
curious.
to cover. It's probably one of the most studied games of all time. Anything you could possibly search for it is already on YouTube.
Nah, I don't come up.
Really much broken record. At the end of the day, whatever I put out, I want it to at least be quality. You know, time is our most valuable resource, and I want to spend mine making things that I'm proud of, and things that when you guys watch, you walk out of thinking, you know, that was worth my time. I don't know. I guess between these two reasons, I just haven't felt like I would be able to achieve that within the realm of old Azeroth. I do still love vanilla World of Warcraft, and I probably always will. Now, do I love Blizzard? That's another discussion, but I do love vanilla World of Warcraft. So if Blizzard puts out vanilla-related stuff that's new and interesting to me, such as this possible Classic Plus idea, or if I'm just feeling really inspired and I manage to find something cool to talk about, I'm all for it. But yeah, until then I'm going to go with quality over quantity, so yeah, apologies if you have been disappointed with the lack of vanilla stuff lately. It's never my goal to disappoint anyone, but it's just about putting out stuff that's quality, you know what I mean? That's all. But with that being said, thank you for giving me your valuable time. Like the video if you did like it, because I will see you in the next one, wherever that may be. Alright, thanks guys. Peace.
Mad Season is one of the most OG content creators, absolute legend. He, like, one of my inspirations for some of the content I used to make back in the day. He is absolutely one of the best content creators for World of Warcraft. If you haven't watched this video, there'll be a link down in the description below. Go ahead and check him out. If you haven't subscribed to him yet, which would be surprising if you're watching me, go and subscribe to him. He's one of the OG legends. Absolute amazing content. Now, I don't agree with every take he had about Classic Plus, but I agree with him in the belief, the feeling, the thought process, the belief systems of what makes vanilla and classic, classic and vanilla. They are important to keep in mind, but to a degree, I don't know if it works in modern day and age. And I think if Blizzard wants to make money, it might not be the game they're going to create that is very tied into or identical to the exact spirit and the exact hopes and dreams of what vanilla Andes or classic Andes have. I think that Classic Plus is going to be amazing. I have some faith in Blizzard. I haven't fully given up. Just like you said, I love vanilla, I love classic, I love TBC, I love Wrath. But like Cataclysm, Mop, and Always Onwards, they're not really the games. I mean, I'm going to be playing Mop, I'm going to enjoy it. But for me, Classic Plus is the future, it's the end goal, it's what I'm really excited about. And there's a lot of time between now and Classic Plus that when it does come to making content, he's not wrong. You kind of run out of shit to talk about. You're gonna start making Mop guides of talking about Mop, because vanilla is not a changing game. There's only so much you can really do on vanilla before you run out of content about vanilla. So we'll see what Classic ends up looking like. I just hope at the end of the day, no matter whose preferred game it is, it's just a good game. So thank you all for watching. If you like this video, please like and subscribe. If you hated it, understandable, dislike and subscribe and become a dedicated hater. Thank you all for watching. Ebonheart out. Peace, everybody.